So hi everyone. My name is Ravi. I work for the City Football Group. Some of you might have heard of me from when I was at the Information Lab, but I've recently moved roles. I've been in this new role for about a month now. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but if anyone is into soccer, football, anything like that, yeah, always happy to talk about that as well. That's my second. It was a perfect role where I'm now able to combine my love for data, Tableau, and football, and working in this great organization. But we're not going to talk about football today, even though I could spend an hour talking about football analytics. We're going to talk about Postgres. So everyone can see my screen. There's this funny post I saw on social media, which is like, whenever you share your screen, everyone elongates their sentences. But Mark, you can see my screen, all good?
Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. So what I'm going to go through for the next half an hour, 40 minutes, however much I can cram in before I either get stuck or run out of things to talk about. He's talking about Postgres on 101 and sort of getting under the hood of your Tableau server deployment, because that's what the Postgres repository is. So I'm Ravi. Like I said, I work for the City Football Group. This is how you spell my name in Gujarati, which is my mother tongue. It's the language I speak at home. And this is how you spell my name in emoji, right? So in emoji, I am very much football, charts, and this guy sitting on a computer. So my role currently is Football Intelligence Officer at the City Football Group, who own Manchester City plus 8 clubs around the world. I've recently moved into this role, and one of the things I've inherited is working on their Tableau deployment. Now I've actually worked with Tableau for 5 whole years. I say whole years because it's like very recently when I sort of started at the Information Lab and the data school and started understanding Tableau and the series of accidents that led me there. And it's been 5 years, and in that time, the way I describe my journey and the way I've approached everything that I do in my role today and everything I've learned and everything I've shared is absolutely that I stand on the shoulders of giants. And I think that's very much the theme of this session. Like everything that I talk about is not original thought. Like it's not anything that I've come up with as a brand new idea. It's very much ideas that built on other people's ideas and other great work and trailblazers that have gone ahead of me. My sort of expertise and my background is I started using Tableau at university for football analytics. I had my own personal blog. It's still up. And I couldn't be bothered how to learn how to code, so I was using Excel for that. Decided that coding was boring and would have taken me too long to learn, so I started using Tableau for fun at university. Then joined the data school, learned Tableau desktop. After joining the core team, after 2 years of working at the Information Lab, I became a server guru. I use that in inverted commas because I hate the term server guru. It's the one that's bandied about a lot. But I basically learned Tableau server because I'd not really understood too much about computers and servers, and came from a complete standing start. And then sort of phase 3 of my time in the Information Lab was around Tableau Blueprint, and I think the Postgres repository and understanding that about what's possible with it and what you can get from it is very much aligned to the Tableau Blueprint itself. So where do we begin? Like, what's a good place to start with such an expansive topic? And I think the best place to start is the Tableau Stack, as told by Tableau. This is taken, it was kindly shared to me by Courtney Jacobson from Tableau, but this is from one thing you'll see in Tableau training guides. I don't think you'll see it anywhere else. But it's quite a nice overview of what you see with Tableau, right? So you've got the sort of life cycle where you have all your different data sources. You can then connect that to Tableau Prep Builder or into Tableau Desktop via Prep Builder or any ETL tool that can create extracts. You can then, if you're a creator license, you can then create these directly onto your Tableau server or Tableau Online. You can consume these either on Tableau server, Tableau Online, or Tableau Mobile. Then we have Tableau Public, which sits on this outside as a source of incredible inspiration, and Tableau Reader, which we don't talk about for, of course, for reasons we as server admins think of as just InfoSec. So let's focus in on what we actually care about the mostest of all of these things, which is Tableau Server and Tableau Online. I'm going to be very much talking about Tableau Server because that's what we have. But some of these, I'll caveat the bits which you can and can't do with Tableau Online. Normally, I'd start this presentation with nothing is useful here in Tableau Online, but there are the admin insights now. So if you're a Tableau Online user, do check out the admin insights because they do build off some of the data sources I'll be talking about today. And yeah, let's get started. Tableau Server rocks. We're all Tableau Server people. We're on the Tableau Server global virtual user group, and let's find out what we can gain from the Postgres. So to the internet. Let's go straight to the internet, and let me find my mouse. Oh, I think I need to escape out of this to get my mouse back. My mouse is gone. That's very strange. Bear with me a moment. There we go. Found my mouse, and we can go. Great. So the repository. Let's start here. The Tableau Server repository. What is it? It's a thing that is installed with every single Tableau Server installation. What it does is it listens to literally everything that happens on your Tableau Server. That's every event, every login, every click, every publish, every connection. Everything is stored there. Your workbooks in their blob formats are stored in this Postgres SQL database. Your users, everything sits in this thing. If this ever was corrupt, your server would blow up. It's probably the most important I'd say the most important thing. It has all the information in it. Now, if you want to then connect to it yourself, this is the great document which you can follow along to connect to it directly. I'll do this very quickly later on in the session. But this is where we're going to start. Now, where most people see the first sort of interaction with this of like, oh, this could be really useful. So is this analysis board where you look at traffic to views and actions and all of these things. You can find this in your server status page on all your sites, or if you go to an individual site, there'll be a status page where you can find all of these workbooks. Now, I'm going to try and be very careful of what I click on and share, but basically, these are pre-built admin views. These are your pre-rolled, built-in admin views. And I think in 2016, there was a chap named Mark Reuter who came to visit London. He's one of the developers. And I told him, when are these going to be updated? Because if you go through these are very Tableau 10.5. And we're all living in this realm of neomorphism and sexy, new age, sleek business dashboards where you don't want it to look like Tableau at all. And then you get these things which just don't look that appealing at all. And yet there's so much valuable information that sits behind this. So one of the first things I thought about was, well, how can I get to this? Now, you used to be able to download these directly. Now you can't. Now I'll come back to this because I've written blog posts about how to grab this yourself and then made it easier and just download it from this page. But I'll come back to that. So step one, where does it live? What is the Postgres repository? It's everything. And it's the database that powers your Tableau server. How can you access it? Two ways. Step one is through this server status tab. And then otherwise you can connect to it directly using, you have to turn on the port itself to allow read-only access. And then you're able to log into it directly, which I'll showcase later on in this session. So the first sort of person I heard that was building these admin views is Mark Jackson. He's a former Zen master and works at a company called Piedmont Healthcare, or did last time I spoke to him. And very much what I found from him, he was one of the first early people to build custom dashboards. Now, when I first worked for a customer, when I was a consultant in the information lab, who asked me for this sort of information, you quickly realize the only thing you can find that most people point you towards is this, right? It's Mark Jackson's custom admin views. And they're great because to this day, all of these workbooks that he shares, they're still useful. They're still relevant because in 5-10 years, I don't think it's 10 years, but at least in 5 to 6, 7 years, the questions we ask as server admins haven't changed. We care about what people are doing, what they're looking at, what's important, what's not important, right? So these questions haven't changed at all. So this is a great place to start. Now, what you find is when you look at these, they're built off some custom joins of some tables that might have changed slightly, and then also you might find that some of these are actually not relevant, and all might use custom SQL, which is just a bit annoying. Now, when I started using it, I started with these workbooks and started building from there, taking the data sources that are behind these, and then building out when I started Project Griffin. So Project Griffin, I'll come back to in a moment. On my blog, I wrote a blog recently, which is about getting started with the Postgres repository, and I linked to these 4 steps. Which is step 1 is if you want to do stuff, watch these 2 YouTube clips. Now the first is this by Matt Coles, and the second is this by Mark Montanari. So Matt Coles was basically talking about how stop building custom views the hard way, just stop. So it's 40 minutes, and I think it's probably a really valuable 40 minutes to follow along with. Not just because he does a couple of build alongs that I'm sure all of you will find use in, but also because he references some of the data sources I'll be talking about today. So 100% recommend this one. Secondly, this turbocharge your Tableau server admin views. And I think this is also a good one, mainly because it talks about some actual use cases and things you can build out and what's possible, which can again give you some ideas of what you actually want to get out of this. Now the second one is download these and plug them in, because and what I mean by these are things that are hosted on Tableau's GitHub page. So Tableau has a GitHub page which is full of all kinds of goodness. I'm sure that this has been mentioned a few times in this user group, but if it hasn't, I recommend having a look around. It's where you find a lot of the extensibility options. It's where you find a lot of the really cool stuff, some stuff that they're even testing and that they're looking for feedback on. But what you also get is, not that one, is the community data sources, this one here. So these community server insights and these workbooks / data sources. And what I'd recommend as step 0 for everyone on this call is to download each one of these and publish them to your Tableau server. But that is step 0 for me. When you're saying I need to start using the repository, download these and start understanding what's inside. The reason I say this is twofold. First of all, they're epic. They are awesome. Like, shouts to Matt Coles for being such a great guy to build these and then share them. And secondly, these are so well documented by Matt, like to the point of there's comments, there's descriptions, there's folders, there's hierarchies, everything that you'd want in a perfectly curated data source. Like, I've used this to demonstrate these data sources to demonstrate Ask data and the information you can add as metadata, because Matt's put so much time and effort into making sure that these are as good as they can be. Now, in each one of these, he then gives you ideas on how to productionize the data sources that drive them, because each one of these links to a workbook itself. As I said, I recommend having a look at them, digging into them, and then starting to expand them further. And this is what I'm recommending to all of you before you even start looking at everything that's in the Postgres. Like, what can I grab out of it? Because just assume everything's in there, but this will give you the things that will help you in the first 100 days, right? If you just assume it like that, everything that you want to know immediately, the really basic, simple questions you can get from these data sources of these workbooks. Now, further down the line, I built out this Postgres directory, which pulls off this other fraction of the Tableau repository, which is the data dictionary. Simply put, this is literally, if we go back a step, 2020.2, because we always want to be on the latest and greatest. It's just a web page that has, if we go to it, I'm probably going this the wrong way, but this is where you will see every single sort of data source that exists, and every what's the word? Documented table. That's the word I'm looking for. Documented table. Now, I spent a lot of time digging through these. There's another way you can get to this, which is from the collect data. Then we go to the data dictionary. So collect information, data dictionary. Here's the link. And this might be familiar to you guys. Like some of you might have tried to pre-roll, got your Control F out, and then gone for, right, I want to find tags. And then you go through each one of these and you're like, is it this tags? Is it the hist tags? Is it underscore tags? What am I looking for here? And this is great because it's a really good, useful thing when you do start to pre-roll and you do start wanting to add in that little bit of extra personal flavor, your own personal data idiosyncrasies, as you will. But for when you're starting, this is a ball ache. This isn't what you want to do. So I mean, that's for me anyway. I didn't want to do that. So I always take these as my lazy perspective. But this is something I built out, which looks at making exploring this repository a bit easier. So you can find different tables, you can find different fields, you can search different versions, you can even search description. So if I'm looking for tags here, I can just search in the description and it will show me. I can then hover over each one and get an understanding of what's going on. Again, this is just a visual tool that I built just to make it a bit easier to get around and find out. For me, this is most interesting when you look at the has and has not changed in each update, because of course when Tableau updates their software, they're going to change some of the Postgres stuff. So we hop back to, let's say, the 2019 set of versions. Like, be aware, stuff changes, right? Like, stuff gets added, stuff gets moved, stuff gets taken away. So yeah, that's worth being aware of, which is why using pre-rolled as your own pre-rolled stuff, roll your own, as it were, isn't ideal, because you have to do this at a level of maintenance. And then for me, everything's about sustainability, and when you leave, what happens, right? So here, so we got the data dictionary, we've got our community sources. So this is where we start. So step 0, watch these videos. Step 1, download these and deploy them onto your Tableau server, or plug in your Tableau server to these workbooks and publish these data sources if that's something that you're willing to do. And then be aware of how to find out when you want to extend it further. This is where Project Griffin comes in. So once the reason Project Griffin exists as this thing, again, it's Griffin because of the Griffin vulture. I thought was trying to think of a cool name for this, where top-down view, a Griffin vulture is the highest flying bird, blah blah blah. But Project Griffin effectively tries to make things easier and ask and answer really simple questions of your Tableau server. So I started blogging about it and sharing the workbooks out for free. So all of you guys can go to this page on the Tableau community website. I recommend going to the community page and then searching Project Griffin in the search bar to get this. And every single time I add in a new blog, I'll be editing this post and adding them in. When we look at this, I've got a bunch of views on here, and the reason behind this was just give people stuff to start with, because it's always easy to say, watch these videos, download this, go figure out what you want to do. But what if you could just give people what they want, right? Like, just plug it in and then tweak it how you want. Like, you figure out what the rest of it is, but I can get you started. So here's an intro to the project on the Information Lab site. Let's get rid of that. Who uses web edit was one of the first ones. So this is back when I was actually rolling my own. This was just using users, HTTP requests, and the sessions table. I go through the joins, etc., and then I build out this view. Now this is quite interesting because in this particular one, it's always interesting to see who's using web authoring. Now the use case I can think of here is, what if you've got explorers and you want to know if they're being used or not, right? What if you've got a champion sitting in a department who every single day is picking up data sources and building his own views, then throwing them away again? How many web authoring sessions are started off data sources? This is the stuff you can start building out. And this is a question that one of the customers had at the Information Lab. Built this out, and then I was like, this is actually a really cool one to share with the community. Again, for each one of these blog posts I'll share, there's a workbook you can download directly and then plug your own data source in. Now, it's quite funny. Every single time I built one of these, with a pre-rolled data source where I had to then explain how this all came together. One of the reasons I stopped doing this is because creating this thing in PowerPoint and then saving it as an image was annoying. Remember, I'm incredibly lazy when it comes to this stuff. Now this is quite an interesting one. So this is where we were looking at how do we, this is a customer with the information I've had where we were looking at, we've moved away from one data source, a database. I want to make sure that no one's using this at all. How do I check all the connections? And lo and behold, this is a workbook that you can do. Click your site, click your project, show me not only the class of connection, but also the actual database connection, where it came from, where it sits. So you can start spotting people who are doing things badly, where they're pointing at their own file path when they shouldn't be, and you can start slapping people on the wrists, right? And then sort of doing this additional level of governance. But as I said, every single one of these that I was building, I was just getting more and more irritated. Like it's fun. It's a nice little puzzle, but surely there's data source that could get this. And then, yeah, for most of the stuff I built out, any of Matt Coles' data sources could help. Let's get rid of this one as well. Next one, simple access frequency. Show me the most popular stuff. Audit tables. So this is actually one that drives the pre-rolled ones that Tableau gives us. So most of these, I think about 4 or 5 of these analysis dashboards actually run off this audit tables data source. If I can hop across to that again. And what this allows you to do is it brings in events, it brings in logins, it brings in project IDs, etc. And this particular workbook we were looking at is, first of all, to try and recreate the Spark time that disappeared in Tableau 2018-3, I want to say, or 2019-1, but also then just spot what is the most popular workbooks. And this is really important. Like right now I'm doing this process where we're migrating our Tableau server into a new environment, and I want to use it as a reset point. So this is being really useful to say, well, what are people looking at and when are they looking at it? And what I'm able to do here is actually exclude users and say, I don't want to count their views. I don't care about myself. I don't care about my colleague. I don't care about our admin account that's doing refreshes and some REST API hits. I can exclude them and then say, well, what are the practitioners actually using? And then the sort of I had this point where I found this section on the Tableau forums where Matt Coles had been silently plugging away with his workbooks before they moved to GitHub. And I was just like, wow, these are cool. Like I said, these are so well documented. It's got everything I need. I didn't even need to care calcs about access times and in the last 180 days versus the last 30 days versus the last 10 days. It's done it for me. This is great. So from then onwards, I haven't really built my own custom views since, because most of the stuff that Matt builds is there. So I just took one of Matt's and sort of tweaked it a bit. This is content audit, and there's another tab in here for stale content. So it's really interesting to see, stuff that's being used that you can start binning off on an automated basis. Again, all of these you can go to, download, start playing with, plug in to your server. Data source audit. I'm going to start whizzing through these. Again, another one of Matt Coles's wonderful connections. And this one is to look at what published data sources connect to which workbooks. Again, to replace, to reuse, recycle, audit workbook, because I think a lot of the use cases you can get from the repository around that. This is one that might be interesting to many of you. This actually just takes all of these built-in admin views and just gives it to you. So I've had them as just all of these in here, just the admin views as one. I've also split them out into each component view and each different data source. Again, one thing you could consider doing is publishing each one of these as published data sources that extract on a nightly basis, just to make load times easier, and just so you don't have to share your Postgres details around for anyone that might want to dig into this a bit further. But all 9 of these data sources are great. My personal favorites, of course, the monitor requests and users. That's the HTTPS tables. Audit tables is great, as is background tasks. So all of these things are great. Russell Christopher wrote a great blog post on how, if you want to do it yourself, you can DIY this. And then we got to the makeover stage of when I started looking at these and be like, there's got to be a better way. Which this is one of the really ugly data sources. So the performance of views. Let's actually hop back to my Tableau server. If you go to performance of views down here, A, it's one of the slowest workbooks on your Tableau server, and B, it's really ugly, right? So for me, if I want to look at like the last, let's say 7 weeks in this case, first of all, I want to apply button. Second of all, I want to find out more than I can see here. Third, this arrow chart looks ugly. I'm not a fan. So yeah, I rebuilt this, and it, in my opinion, looks a bit sexy. Again, you can see here it's using the monitor using request table, which is one of the ones we looked at just now as part of the 9. And I think this looks a bit better, and it's actually a bit more useful. Like you can see, overall, all you care about is these two numbers not being too high, and you care about knowing which ones are outliers, so you can go and fix them if needs be. That's literally all you care about, and I think this outlines that a bit better and a bit more cleanly. So again, you can download this plugin and play it. I'm going to skip through these. Who's using what? Again, simply looking at active users, then clicking through and looking at how often people use it. This was a fun one. This was very much a ad hoc, off the cuff thing where Jonathan Drummy asked me if this something's possible. I was like, probably, and then we started building this out, and it just became a bit messy. This is one of the edge cases I was talking about, where there isn't anything in the Maccold data sources that can give you this information. So you do build this out, and that's where I start using my data dictionary. I start using sort of a bit of nous and look at the under the hood of Matt's data sources. But this was to look at custom views on Tableau Server and what are people subscribing to. That's both public and private. Just so you can start understanding, are people, after training, are people using it? What are custom views people need to be using? Where can we start consolidating workbooks into one, or multiple data sources into one, and start understanding how people are using it. Okay, let's take a breath. So, step 0, Postgres. What is it? It controls everything and drives everything that sits underneath your Tableau server. Step 2, how can you access it yourself? You can collect using, you can turn it on. It's a feature you have to turn on on the actual admin box. And then you can connect as a read-only user. How do you do that? So here's something I prepared earlier. Here's my server. Here's my port. Here's my thingy. I've got read-only and my password. I connect as a Postgres connection from my Tableau workbook, and then I click sign in. And you get this. And this is why you don't want to do this, because you've got 273 different tables. Now, if we look at through these, where do you start? Some of these aren't documented in the dictionary, right? So when you're looking at these, there are stuff. I mean, my favorite ones are the recommendation tables, because this is the machine learning that Tableau does automatically, which doesn't. This is where you start having fun with it, because in the recommendation fields, you get worksheet fields. And I have a theory that you can actually start building out some of the data management add-on based on these worksheet fields. But that's another story for another time. But imagine starting and not knowing where to go. There are 273 different tables. And then you're like, okay, fine. Well, I want to look at workbooks. Well, which one, right? Like, where do you start? Do you want workbooks recommendations? Do you want workbook view? Do you want workbooks? Do you want underscore workbooks, hist workbooks, workbook events? Like, where do you actually start? This is why I 100% recommend start without this, and then start digging into these as and when, because you can do this fun thing where you can click on the view and get an understanding of the tables and the column headers before you even start using these, right? So that's my recommendation. But that's how you build them in. Then you build it as a data source as you normally would in Tableau. Here's one I prepared earlier. This is something I'm doing internally right now. Everything is thankfully sanitized. As you can see, I've got this is a published data source in my workbook. And I'm looking at my different sites and trying to figure out, what do I need to move to my new Tableau server, and what can I use this as an opportunity to bin off. So this is looking at my workbooks. Let's look at my different data sources, and I can see that I've got a lot of Excel data sources, some SQL, some OneDrive, maybe digging in a bit deeper into the actual data source breakdown. And ultimately, then a content audit, right? What sits where, and what's my hierarchy looking at, and how can I start consolidating? One of the things we're going to do is move from many sites to one site, many projects. How does that look in a permissions world? I can start understanding these using this workbook. And again, using just the TS content, because all I care about right now is the content. Cool. So we get there, then we get to watching these videos. So let's follow the instructions, watch the videos. We then have a look at Matt Cole's hero data sources, plug them, deploy them, start playing. Okay. Wonderful. How does that look like on my Tableau server? So how does that look like in production? So if we go back to this, here's how I've got mine set up. I've got a site for my department. And then within this, we've got server analysis and a bunch of workbooks. I publish each of these as published data sources. You can see some are live, some are on an extract. And then we have some stuff that was created previously. But what I've got is 3 different sub-projects. Firstly, for the Tableau server admin views and the different data sources in there. I've just got the 2 which I cared about most currently. Starter workbooks from the TS repository. These are from Matt Goals. These are sat there as just useful insights. And then finally, within Project Griffin, I've got the ones that I've created and deployed within that, right? So I'm then able to dig into one of these. And if I go to Project Griffin, I can go to my custom views, which I've sanitized. And we can see that in production of, I can start looking at different views, who's using them, and sort of how that looks in my production server, right? Great. And now what I can do is click on something and I can go directly to one of them as well. Fantastic. So that's how do you use these in reality, in production. I'd create a separate, we've got a separate project for this, and I think that's what we'll continue to do in our new environment, and then organize these with these as published data sources, so we don't have to. I don't have to keep connecting to my Postgres directly each time, and then figure out the joins. Wonderful. Now the final thing I'm just going to quickly finish up on is Tableau Blueprint. My final year at the Information Lab, 18 months, I was a customer success manager. So understanding the Tableau platform meant that I was able to recommend what's the best practice and ideas and recommendations. And one of the things I talk about a lot is key success indicators, KSIs, mainly around this measurement piece, but also around education, about monitoring, about deployment, about maintenance. And the Postgres database is such a treasure trove that can tick so many of these boxes when you have them in the right way. You can start setting up data-driven alerts. What if you want to know every single time someone publishes a new workbook? You want to make sure that it's QA'd. Set a data-driven alert to that. What if you want to know on a Monday morning, at a glance, the last 7 days of how people use your Tableau server, and more importantly, what they're looking at? Set up an alert. I heard this great customer story where they set up some monitoring using the Postgres, where what they'd done is set an alert to say when the CEO logs into our Tableau server, I'd be sending an email so he can pop some champagne. And then one day it happened. What actually happened was his secretary had logged into it. But it's one of these things where, what if you can start monitoring how often people look at stuff? And I think, wouldn't it be great to be able to start having data-driven decisions on how data-driven you are? Like, how can you measure how data-driven you are? Well, you can, because you can start seeing whether people are interacting with information, whether they're connecting to workbooks, whether they're web authoring, whether their team is accessing it, whether they're even getting subscriptions or clicking through, right? All of these things are important. And if you hear during me and Mark chatting at the start of the session, I talked about one of my imagine if scenarios. Imagine if you could see how people get into your server and get out. Imagine if you could use Tableau server to start exploring user behaviors and start clustering those users together. Imagine if you could almost buddy people up. Imagine if you could get your managers, all of your organizations, to start tracking these. And if we talk about Blueprint in general, as an overview, it's trying to create a data-driven company. But you can't become data-driven unless you're measuring something to have that as a barometer, right? How can you even say something's a success if you're not tracking it in some way? And ultimately, it's like this. It's a repeatable process. And Tableau Server allows you to track, monitor, and have that as a repeatable process and have those deployments. And this is where I've got my final call to action before I finish off, which is, if any of you guys have any ideas or questions or comments of stuff that's possible, send them my way, and I can either point you in the right direction of how to start building these out. Well, no, I'm happy to continue to build out some workbooks that people can use, because ultimately we all succeed when everyone else succeeds. If we're able to share, and we have this culture amongst us as server admins where we're explaining our rationale, sharing our questions, and just being selfless in trying to help all of our companies move forward to be successful, that's where you see real success and real impetus, not just within your organizations, but within the world around us as well. It sounds quite deep when I think about it. But just to finish off, as I said, the sort of theme for my presentation is standing on the shoulders of giants. I'm not saying I'm a giant in any stretch of imagination, because I'm on so many people's shoulders as I am. No, I'm 5'7". I'm not very tall at all. But no, absolutely standing on the shoulders of giants. Continue to build and share, because ultimately we become the giants for other people to stand on the shoulders of. But yeah, no, that was my whistle stop tour, and I think I covered a lot there. So I'll open up to questions for the remaining 20 minutes. So thank you for listening. Thank you for taking your time out of your morning, afternoon, evening to join me. And yeah, happy to field any thoughts, questions, comments at all.
All right. Ravi, thank you so much. Ravi, if you go to QA, you should be able to see some questions.
Let me
for the audience,
find out
your questions through the QA button.
Oh, amazing. Look at these. Great. Where should we start? What's a good social media link? Yeah, Scribbler42. Let me type that answer. There's a story behind that as well. How can I manage Tableau licensing, track those licenses that are not used? The perennial question. Login-based license management is how I'm going to go through things. I've got my renewal coming up at the end of the month. One of the things I've spoken to about my one of the things I've thought about, spoken to my account manager about is this, where we are looking at renewing, and if you speak to your account manager, as long as you're on subscription and renewing on the same day, you can swap to this key, which is login-based license management, which means instead of tracking a billion keys and sharing them by email, blah, 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 you're then saying to people, log in using your Tableau server ID, that's it. And then suddenly their desktop usage is tracked by Tableau server automatically using desktop reporting. And secondly, you don't have to send around keys, right? Like you've suddenly got this visibility. Now, the portal is still probably the best way to monitor, which is annoying. But yeah, so that's probably the best bet for that one. I hope that answers your question. How and where do I download these workbooks? How do I access Tableau Public for server admin stuff? Search my name, Ravi Mistry, Tableau Public. You should be able to find that workbook. I've also published it on social media. But again, after this session, I'll share all my stuff with Mark and Alyssa, and they'll circulate links, things I've talked about, because I know I've talked about a lot here. But I'll absolutely share everything I've gone through here as well. Cool. What else is there? Let's see. How do you monitor this usage? Sorry, go on.
No, sorry. I thought you wanted to look for the QA area, so you can start from the top of QA.
Yeah, I should start from the bottom. I don't know why that's the wrong way around or not. Anyway, sorry. Scott asked, how do you monitor usage? That's a very good question. I think Tableau tracks that itself. There's a weird cycle in there where it's tracking its own Tableau repository size, right? So there's actually a view within Tableau Server which talks about the size. I'm not sure whether that's the actual size of the workbooks and data sources, but that's a good question. I personally I've just asked for a big server. Mark, you might be a better person to ask this, like with your 300 gig Postgres.
Was a question, how do we monitor server usage, or?
No, how do you monitor the size of your Postgres?
Okay. When you back up your server, you have option of ignore the extracts or not, right? And then when you do so, when you have to ignore the extracts, then the rest is pretty much the size of your backup for Postgres.
Yeah,
that's one way.
Otherwise, you've got your standard server monitoring tools. I think that's the way to do it. Cool. So I'll start from the top again. Sorry. So Kate, is there any sample workbooks of server contents, just like an index workbook name? Yeah. So the TS content has all of this. Yeah. So the TS content data source that Matt Cole's created has all of that information. So the workbook name, view name, URL. Man, it's got even more than you probably want. Parent project, project like URL permissions in there, who are your server admins, so much stuff in there. It's superb. But yeah, TS content is what you're looking for there, Kate. Saraswati, there are workbooks and views which help us analyze which data sources are used to use a specific table. Yes. So the TS connections I talked about, that has some of that in. So again, that's one of Matt Coles's. And what the audit connections I shared, which is one of my Project Griffin workbooks, does look at those tables as well. It might not always have it. There are certain times where it won't tell you exactly what tables there are. That's where Tableau will come in and say, well, they've got the metadata API as well as the data manager add-on. And yeah, both of those work as well. I do have a lot of respect and a lot of love for the data management add-on. I think it's very valuable for what it is in terms of integrating deeply into your Tableau server. Brian Brooks, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Let me have a look at, sorry, just a question came in there. Our users want to know their view performance year on year. Okay, great question. One thing I didn't mention is I've mentioned in my blog post about Postgres 101, is that your Postgres by default saves 6 months worth of content, right? So it only has 180 days, 179 days, I think, of content saved. So anything beyond 6 months gets purged automatically just to save on size. However, using TSM maintenance, we'll get WG get maintenance, I think something like that. You can extend that period out as far as you want. So yeah, that's so you can probably get that view performance year on year. You can probably work that out. So I recommend, what obviously you can't do is if you extend that, you can't get the 6 months previous back, but you can do start monitoring that month on month. But yes, I think TS events is what you're looking for there, about hits on a data source. Data sources will give you just a bit more information about that. This is great. So many.
I add one thing, Brian's question. So a view performance year over year. Okay, that's something that I also tried looking for. One way I'm doing it, because the view performance is in the details is in the HTTP request table. That table by default
gets purged more.
It's very short. On my server, I only keep less than 2 weeks data for better performance.
And by default, it keeps 7 days, I think.
7 days? Yeah, I keep, I think, 8 days for me. For me, maybe 7. So what I do is I subscribe to the view. I have a view that shows me the average render time for some workbooks. Then I subscribe it daily. That's one way I keep my history. Another way we've been doing in the past, we kind of stopped. We do the incremental extracts for the HTTP request, which over time became very big, is too big to manage. I gave that up. So I feel, looking back, I feel that I subscribe to the view daily, so I build up my history. Now, you may argue, I want to do a year over year, that's a lot, but my other side of argument is the workbooks get changed very often. The year over year, I really don't know how much sense it still makes, you know? The workbook.
And this is it. I think I think one of the best things you do, Brian, is just recommend people check in on their views with a subscription, like a monitoring dashboard, where they can see, because you can start, the fun stuff is you can start using user filters, right? So you can then start to say, if Brian.Brooks, then show me everything I'm looking at and how that's performed, or I'm the owner of, right? This is where you can start really getting really creative with the Postgres, because you're able to match the person looking at the view on Tableau server with the actual person, which is that same person. So you're able to start getting really, really in depth and really personal with those custom views. I'm just going to continue to answer a few of these because there's so many. Hopefully answer your question, Brian. Any dashboard or data source for permissions on, okay. My easy get out of jail card is no, there isn't one. There is a way around it. It's been on my to-do list for a long time to understand permissions, who can see what. But it's a bit of a mess. And I think, and Tableau themselves, if you speak to any developers, they also know it's a mess. Users in each group you can get from the TS users table that Matt Coles created. Permissions is a bit harder. Harder in the sense that you have to sort of map group permissions. And then if someone's got access to a site because of a group rule, but has never logged into that site, they won't populate in Postgres. There's a bunch of different nuances in there as well. Hopefully that answers your question there, Alex. Victor, does anyone use the TSI API for monitoring and user notifications, automatically notify user when it's gone over the... I personally haven't. Perhaps someone else in the group has. Yeah, I've not used any APIs personally. Great. So where do I download these workbooks? Yeah, like I said, I think I answered that live. Licenses we've done live as well. Sparsh, are there any planned near releases of Tableau Server to download these? Oh, that one's disappeared quickly. That's all right, let me find it. Download these workbooks in Excel. No, I don't think so. I don't know what you're trying to do there, personally. But yeah, I'm not sure what you're trying to ask there. So maybe you can put something in the chat to follow up there. What else we got? Let's Beam. Do you have anything for server performance of CPU memory on the cluster? Tabmon. Tabmon is your friend. I don't know, although I don't know if that works on Linux. I am not a Linux person. As I said, I was grandfathered into being a Tableau server guru, given that I hadn't, like, I'm not a computer person. I studied economics at university. So yeah, I'm probably not the best person to ask about the Linux cluster, but perhaps other people in the group can answer that. Links I mentioned, yep, they'll be shared. Documentation on server. Great question, Linda. Oh, I'm going to write a blog on this eventually, but my sort of 2 cents on DR methods is: A, take backups regularly. Your .ts back file is your life. B, when you save that .ts back file, mirror it. If you're able to mirror it onto a network drive, that then takes you to another location, which just adds that level of redundancy. Do that. And C, yeah, I mean, your Postgres is included in that backup, or make sure your Postgres is included in that backup. But yeah, for DR, your .ts back file is your best friend. I do not recommend VM snapshots, just because, just me being paranoid more than anything, and also Tableau support don't support that. They support TS back, they don't support VM snapshots. What I recommend with VM snapshots is take a snapshot, but also take a backup, right? So then you restore the machine, and then you restore the backup on top of that, just for security. Because if the Postgres is writing something for whatever reason while you're taking the snapshot, that might cause the Postgres to become corrupt. But that was a great question. Thank you for that, Linda. Track unused licenses. I think I talked about that. Login-based license management is probably your best friend there. Does the server management add-on give you additional views? No. The server management add-on lets you do a lot more around machine monitoring. So that's around, like, for example, clusters, blah, blah, blah. You can have ingrained alerts. I think for Beam, your question, that might be a good option for you to go down. I have my thoughts on the licensing personally, and how that works, and how it would operate at scale, and the value you get back from it. But because of the site migrations you get from it, you get loads of great stuff when if your particular deployment looks at, for example, moving from a QA server or QA site to a prod site. That makes sense. I think look at the server management add-on as a whole rather than for small parts, because I think that's where you'd get value for money. Anonymous, automate your auto run the scheduled refreshes if it fails on the first run. API, tab CMD. Yeah, API probably is your best option there. I've not done something like that personally. Is there any tables within the Postgres which stores the actual database server name used by a data source? Yes, that was the TS connections I talked about. It's in the data connections page. But start with Matt Coles' TS connections and then sort of build up from there. The great thing about Matt Coles' stuff is because he's saved it as an open data source, once you plug in your server, you then get access to the way he's created it. So you can then add in your different joins or understand and sort of learn the tables while you do that as well. Views historically over time, not daily. The HIS tables, TS events. Again, audit tables is probably your best data source around that, as is TS events. I think pick one to track, because if you start trying to match up numbers you see in different places, it's a mess. I've tried to match up the number you see on Tableau Server with the number I see on Postgres versus another Postgres. It often doesn't add up, but yeah, definitely build that out, Linda. Good question. Any challenges for Tableau in cloud? So if you're using Tableau online, you can't roll your own. What you do get access to is most of, or at least two of, Matt's data sources. So I think you get TS events and TS users, which means you're gonna have to do a bit of blending to get the actual the fun stuff out of there. Unfortunately, but yeah, that's your limitation. I mean, you get something these days that's a step forward. I'm hoping that all of Matt's data sources will be on there one day. Jeff, that's a great question. I'm asked recently what filters people click on. This was something that came up as a consultancy. My colleague and friend Valantis had this question. In a word, no idea. If you could, you probably get it from one of the APIs, and even that's, yeah, not sure. HTTPS or APIs. Yeah. I don't know if you have any ideas there, Mark.
Yeah, this is Mark. I'm trying to leverage one of the extensions that Thomas Foldy built.
Yes, yeah, tracking clicks, yeah.
And you have to add that extension to a specific workbook, so you can hopefully track that specific workbook's clicks. I'm trying to
workbook click. Yeah. I mean, ideally, there'd be something that allows you to do that for user behavior. I don't know how Tableau devs would build that in, but yeah, have a look at Tamas Foldy's extension. How to track unused extract and views and notify the users. To track, easy. Look at the background tasks data source you get pre-built. To notify the users, some API magic and another product to send the email is probably your best bet. Where will the links be shared? I don't know how much is your links.
The Tableau community, after migration to a new platform, a lot of links are broken. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. I'll share those links. Yeah, I'll share that because I've got it from the new platform. I'll try and correct them. But Mark, I don't know how you send around links after a session. How does that work?
I have a link that has all the previous Tech Talk recording summary and so on. That link is also broken. I'm trying to rebuild that link basically. I'll share with everyone, post in the server.
Alyssa, would you be able to share that to all the attendees? Like an email, one-off?
Yeah, we can do an email and then we'll post it in the server admin community group forum.
Excellent. Let's do that then. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question there, Sarah. There's a few coming in. We've got 3 minutes left. I can continue to go, but people can drop off. But let's go. Reasons you don't do live connection for sums analysis, right? Just speed, Kate. So the reasons I don't have live connections to those workbooks is speed of just loading, because if you're hitting every time and then someone changes something, every time you take a click, it then hits and then updates. And if you're showing something and numbers change, people get nervous for some reason. So yeah, I do extracts for those data sources. I've got the extracts that are recommended by Matt, and I've just created a schedule that runs those there. So hopefully that answers your question there, Kate. Oh yeah, Jeff, I will definitely send you that. Let me just take a note of your email, because I will absolutely take you up on that offer. Where should I put this? Put this here. Great. So that's live done. Intended question: can we download the report in a flat file or in terms of structure? Yeah. So once you've created something in Tableau as a connection, you probably can download that. You can export that data source as you normally would. Yeah. You just create a cross tab and then export it as cross tab, I guess. Scripts for backup, yeah. I mean, I'm a 100% fan of Jonathan McDonald. He taught me everything I know about Tableau Server. I will send the workbooks, the scripts he has for both Linux and Windows. Yeah, they're the best in the business, in my opinion, for backups. For you, Shankar, but I'll share that across with you as well. Let me just make a note of that. GitHub till JMac script. Great. What else we got? Any recommendation on how to block certain schedule slots? So people. Oh, that's a good question. Use a separate site. Yeah, create a new site which is just for this, and then only have certain people have access to that. Yeah, that's probably your best idea, and then manage your schedules accordingly. Kyle, I think this is the last question for now. How have you handled building dashboards where you need to analyze 1 billion plus lines of data? Oh, great question. Anything written beyond build a backend data process? Extracts. Yeah, I mean, when you get to that size of data, like you basically end up being like, well, can you optimize this any further? Can you do multi-table extracts when you're building this out? So then that becomes faster for Tableau to ingest that information. Can you consider improving your workbook performance with, the performance checklist from Tableau? That's a good way to start. Yeah, my answer is always like multi-table extracts might be a good use case there. Another one could be just. My opinion is most workbooks being slow is the poor dashboard design. And I think the second thing is if you think about a multi-table extract, like that's how it works. Cool. So there we go. That's 33 questions answered. Oh, that was fun.
Ravi, you did it. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for everyone joining today's webinar. Next month, we'll have a Tableau 2020.3 new feature demo, and also I will be sharing the Tableau permission, deep dive on Tableau permissions. Thank you very much. Excellent. Have a good day. Stay safe, stay home. Bye. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Hit me up if you have any questions or comments. Always happy to listen.
All right. Bye now.